أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المسائب أبا عبد الله. May Allah continue to increase in your rewards and tawfiqat for remembering and commemorating the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. I have not the words to express to you the uniqueness of this majlis. I understand it's hot, you're tired, it's difficult. But understand something. In the history of mankind and society, the nature of man is the longer you're separated from someone, the less you remember them. Somebody passes away from your family, every year you remember them less and less and less. But this particular commemoration is not according to the natural order of the world. This commemoration is one that persists every single year. And we go through great difficulty. We go through challenges. You go through the hardship of the heat, of the rush, of the crowd, of the parking, to participate in these majalis. You hear the same masaib every year, and yet you still cry. And you find that even if it is a year away, the heart still hurts and commemorates these difficulties. This is not something normal. This is not something that you can explain to another human being. With what words would you say that 1400 years ago, there is someone who you loved. You never saw him. You never spoke to him. Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum. But still I wish that if Allah would give me the permission, I would be there with him. And I will sacrifice every year to be in that position, to listen about him, to learn about what he loved, and learn about the people who loved him and wanted to be with him. It's not natural. It's not normal. It's a tawfiq and a gift from Allah. If you ponder over it, it is completely illogical. The numbers that we gather in, the tears that we shed, the mourning that we perform. The significance of mentioning this is don't take it lightly. Don't consider this as something to be easy and normal. Not everybody can do what you are doing. Not everybody loves the children of Rasulullah the way you do. This is a matter of pride. This is a matter of honor and dignity. That I intend to be in a place where that if the Ahlul Bayt could witness me, they would be pleased with me. Which requires that when we are here, in spite of all of these difficulties, in spite of all of the challenges and the hardships that you are going through, preserve the dignity of the majlis and of yourself in such a way that if my Imam could see me the way I would want to see him in that field of Karbala and assist him, if he could see me here, he would say, I wish you were with me. I wish you had been with me for the love you possess for me. Therefore I ask, in spite of these challenges, that this is a night of being patient. We'll have a short discussion on the fundamentals of this justice of Allah, with the intention that the love of Allah is the love of Hussain. And the love of Hussain is not different than the love of Allah. The more that we understand, appreciate, love Allah, the closer we come to the example of Abu Abdullah. So a few points with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In these past number of nights, we've continued to discuss the concept of adala and justice as it comes from Allah and it is represented in humanity and society. The epitome of the justice of Allah is manifested on the day of judgment. On that day when all affairs are laid clear, where there is no possibility of injustice to exist anymore. There are descriptions of this day that point to the fact and say that everyone will come in a different form. Those who have sinned, their sin will become apparent. Those who have done good will be accompanied by nur. The description of this day and the attribute that people will look differently on the day of judgment is to show that the justice of Allah is haqq. You see, today, we can hide whatever our sin is. I can look at a person and think of them as pious. MashaAllah, the beard. MashaAllah, the hijab. I can imagine that the physical appearance can hide. And if you hid evil, there is no one who will not see the evil on your face. That day of judgment and truth, there are some questions that we have about it. The one that in particular many ask is the idea that we talk about this day of judgment and we say, if I am found to be a sinner on the day of judgment, my punishment is eternal. If I am found to be a good person on the day of judgment, my reward is eternal. It's a very logical question that people ask. How can someone be punished for eternity when they only sinned for a small period of this life? And how can somebody be rewarded for eternity when just for a short period they did a few good things in their life? This description of talking about this complexity, that why, how is God just that he takes someone who only lived maybe 30 years, 40, 50, 60. What's the longest? 100 years? And eternity is without end. The punishment of hell, as is the reward of heaven, is something so unique in its description that before Allah passes judgment on anyone, he collects all of humanity in the field of mahshar and presents before them a sheep. And an angel calls out and says, "Oh, creations of Allah, do you recognize what is before you?" And humanity calls out and says, "No, we don't know who or what this is." And the malaika reply, "This is Malikul Maut before you. This is death before you." And then that sheep is slaughtered. And the explanation is given, "O mankind, O creation of Allah, understand that from now on, there is no more concept of death. There is no escaping the condition that you enter. That the reality that sets in now, there is no relief and there is no end." Meaning that when we talk about this idea of eternity, it is a very frightening thing. And the reason it's frightening is to say that I was careless. I didn't pay attention. I used excuses to get out of my responsibilities in this world. But Allah will not forgive me for that. And how could it be? I'm a simple man. I did not sin much. I did not do well much. But that Allah should punish me in such a way that I face a punishment for eternity. How can this be justice of Allah? There are a number of different ways of understanding this. The first of them, look at how justice is passed in this life and can commit. Though he commits the crime once, though the crime took maybe minutes to perform, the punishment can be for a very lengthy amount of time. Na'uzu billah, someone takes a life in this world, and the punishment can be life in jail. It can take 20 years of your life. The argument that society presents is not to say that, but he killed someone in 5 minutes, so we'll put him in prison for 5 minutes. They say, no, the heinousness, the evilness of the crime is such that though it may have been 1 day, 1 hour, 1 minute in which the crime was committed, the punishment that is worthy for this crime is that for the next 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, the person is removed from society and loses their freedom. Meaning for us to ask the question that how can God be just if he punishes for a very long time, but my life in comparison to that very long time was very short? We would say that the punishment is not based on the length of time that you committed the sin, but the severity of the sin that was committed and the one against whom the crime was committed. So initially the question itself is bad. To say that, oh, well, I only sinned, na'uzubillah, 1 day out of my life, Why should I be punished for eternity? Rather, we would say, no, look what you did. And what you did deserves the punishment that you have reached. The second way of understanding this, that how can it be that a punishment is for a very long period of time? Allah in the Quran, in Surah Munafiqun, we mentioned this verse, describes a situation at the end of the life of a believer where he says, Ya Allah, extend my life. We said, وَأَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُم مِّن قَبْلَ أَن يَأْتِيَ أَحَدَكُمُ الْمَوْتِ فيقول رب لولا أخرتني إلى أجل قريب فأصدق وأكن من الصالحين. That there are those amongst the mu'mineen who Allah warns and says, do good deeds every minute you have the chance. Lest that when Malikul Maut comes to collect you, you plead with Allah, Allah, extend my life a little bit. Let me earn a reward with you. Allah answers this request in the next ayah and explains another perspective of answering this question of how can a reward be permanent and how can a punishment be permanent. Allah says, وَلَن يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. Allah in the 11th verse of Surah Munafiqun answers this question. You want to extend your life? Allah says, I don't extend the life of anyone when their time has come. It's not possible. But Allah says, Wallahu khabirun bima ta'malun. And Allah knows that which you would do. This explanation of Allah is to point and say that if you are someone who gave throughout your life, Allah already knows that if He gave you a longer life, you would continue to give and continue on the path of goodness. And if you were someone who didn't give, extending your life in that moment would not have made you give any more, anything else that you didn't already give. Meaning that this life that Allah gives us, and this is the extrapolation of the affair, this life that Allah gives us, if we are alive, it is because we are in the process, and we should continue to be in the process of changing our deeds and improving our actions and doing better and earning more with Allah. Or, na'uzubillah, we are those that are taking this life and doing worse with it every day. And Allah is giving us a chance to either change for the better or to leave for the worse. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, it's very important that you listen right now. We've begun towing cars at the shopping center and at Dominion Energy. If you're parked at Dominion, you have to actually be parked in a parking spot that has the lines. You can't park in front of the metallic gates. You can't park anywhere where, it's illegal to park. So we advise all of you to please, mashallah, move your cars. And, we don't want any of your cars to be towed. Please do go park at Saratoga, and inshallah the shuttle will get you here just in a few minutes, okay? So there was one car parked there, a black Toyota Camry in front of the metallic gate of Dominion with the license plate ULG 4126. Please move your car. They said they were going to start towing with that car, so please move your cars, brothers and sisters. Salla ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Either all of you parked really well or the men drove. Something happened here. Allah in this verse of Surah Munafiqun describes the condition to say that Wallahu khabirun bima ta'malun, that Allah knows what you would intend to do if I gave you more life. Meaning that Allah's giving us of life is to the extent that there is change. Once you stop changing, for the better or for the worse, understand your life has come to a completion, that there is no more test. Once the answer has been cleared and there is no changing in it, there is no point in it. Which is why this isn't the only place that Allah gives this description. Rather, in the 6th chapter of the Holy Quran, Allah explains the conversation and complaint of the sinner on the Day of Judgment. Allah describes and says, وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ وُقِفُوا عَلَى النَّارِ فَقَالُوا يَنَا وَلَا نُكَذِّبَ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّنَا وَنَكُونَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. that Allah describes and says, and then when they are made to stand before the fire, in front of the hellfire, they will say, oh, woe that we were sent back. We would not reject the signs of Allah, and we would be believers. Allah says, بَلْ بَدَا لَهُمْ مَا كَانُوا يُخْفُونَ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَلَوْ رُدُّوا لَعَادُوا لِمَا نَهُوا عَنْهُ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَكَاذِبُونَ. Allah says, no, they wouldn't. Allah says, what they concealed before shall become manifest to them. And if they were sent back, they would certainly go back to that which they were forbidden from doing, and most surely they are liars. This description tells us that Allah, when He punishes someone, that punishment may be for an eternity, but it is because the habit that was established on the earth was one that had no intention of changing, such that even if Allah sent us back to life, we would continue on the same path we were on in our life. So Allah says the dalil, the proof against you is complete. Which is why one of the discussions is, what is the proof against us? How does Allah prove on the Day of Judgment that His justice is real? He Himself explains, and He says, I am the judge against you, but you are the witness against yourself. Allah says, I don't need to expose you, you will expose yourself. Which is why Allah describes this and He says, وَيَوْمَ يُحْشَرُ أَعْدَاءَ اللَّهِ لَلنَّارِ فَهُمْ يُوزَعُونَ حَتَّى إِذَا مَا جَاءُوهَا شَهِدَ عَلَيْهِمْ سَمْعُهُمْ وَأَبْصَارُهُمْ وَجُلُودُهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Allah describes and He says, on that day the enemies of Allah, when they're brought together to the fire, and they're formed into groups, when they come to this fire and are about to be entered, their ears, their eyes, their skin shall bear witness against them as of to what they used to do in this life. Allah doesn't need to attack us. Allah will simply ask us for the truth and we will give it. And the enemy of Allah in that moment will complain. وَقَالُوا لِجُلُودِهِمْ لِمَا شَهِدْتُمْ عَلَيْنَا. They will complain to their skin, hey, why did you bear witness against me? Don't you realize you will burn with me? Don't you realize that all of the jism will be the one that suffers? قالوا أنتقنا الله الذي أنتق كل شيء وهو خلقكم أول مرة وإليه ترجعون. The skin will reply and say, O person, O man, I didn't choose to bear witness against you. Allah made me bear witness against you. Meaning that you are the witness against yourself of the sins that you present. Which is why now when we understand, we talk about the idea of the justice of Allah. That the justice of Allah will be the punishment, will be an eternal punishment. Or the reward of Allah will be an eternal reward. And how is that reasonable if, for example, the life was not this long? It is because one, that the sins are greater and the sins are worthy of a greater punishment. Thus, therefore, the punishment is longer than the sin took. When we talk about, for example, the enemies of Allah who are present in Karbala, is there anyone who would imagine that they should be given relief for the sins that they committed against the family of the Prophet? No. This is the example of the sin that is so great that it is worthy of the punishment of being eternal. The second point is that when we receive a punishment that is eternal, it is on the principle that had life persisted for us, our actions would not have changed. We would have continued down the same path of sin. And that finally, there is no belying the sins that were. You can't lighten the sin and say, no, I didn't do it, it wasn't so bad. Why? Because your body will be the witness against you to prove the actions that you committed. This example of the skin speaking against us, if the affair is being disclosed, in previous nations this was considered very difficult and impossible to imagine. How is this possible? Today for us, the concept is very straightforward. From one example you can look and see. That is that today everything I do in social media, every place I go to, every action I perform, every idea I have, I disclose in an online structure so that not just Allah is aware of my affairs, but that humanity is constantly watching me. So why would it surprise me that Allah has a complete register of my actions? The other item is that we've learned of the impact body retain. how the DNA changes as we go through processes in life, how the process of information of what we go through is shared with each generation, that the cells within themselves store the knowledge of what it is that we have done, where it is we have come from, and what it is that we do with our life. That we can look at the genetic markers in an individual and know all of their affairs. Hence, to say that we are witness against ourselves in the actions is not difficult to imagine of the condition of the Day of Judgment. And that all of these will be reflected, that each of us will be individually responsible for them. Which is why the hope is that we would seek assistance in this situation. You would look for someone to help you. You would look for someone to lighten your burden. But look how Allah describes the condition of the Day of Judgment, that this is true justice. There is no escaping this justice. Why? وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى وَإِن تُدْعُوا مُثْقَلَةٌ إِلَىٰ حِمْلِهَا لَا يُحْمَلْ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا وَلَوْ كَانَ ذَا قُرْبَى. Allah describes and He says, a burden of a soul cannot bear the burden of another. And if one weighed down by burden should cry for another for assistance, that you will look for assistance in that situation. None of it can be passed to anyone, not even your family and your friends can offer you assistance in that moment. This description of justice being absolute is not a one-dimensional justice. The fear of the Day of Judgment is that the justice of Allah is not a simple matter. It is something, if you don't understand it, you will complain of this justice. Why? Look how Allah describes, and He says, there are 3 phases I will make you go through before you can attain the reward of the Day of Judgment. One is called the Tatawur al-Qutub. The second is the Mizan. And the third is the Sirat. When we speak of the Mizan and Tatawur al-Qutub, there should be a question that comes to mind. There is a thought that comes to mind. Why is there these 2 elements? See, Allah describes and He says, on the Day of Judgment, if I give you your book in your right hand, your a'mal in your right hand, it means you have done more good deeds in your life and are likely to be rewarded. And if I give you your book of deeds in your left hand, then you have committed more sins and are likely to be punished. If I already know that my book, if it's in my right hand, there is more good, and if my book is in the left hand, there is more bad, what is the point of the scale? Why is there a scale? The weight has already been set, that the right hand possesses more goodness, the left hand possesses more sin. So why then does Allah discuss the scale? You guys all right? You're okay? I'm going to tell you something, it's really important. It's about to get like really serious. You good? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. This is why I said the justice of Allah is not one-dimensional. The one dimension is to say, I did more good deeds than bad. If I know I did more good deeds than bad, why do I need a scale? I've already explained it. I have my good deeds. This is why the justice of Allah is not did you do more good or did you do more evil. This is one phase. The second phase is more challenging. This is what the Mizan is for. After I've done more good than evil, the next action I have to answer for is Allah gave me ni'mat and bounties and mercy, bounties in this life. How much good did I do compared to the bounties that Allah gave me? This is the purpose of the scale. Not to judge the good against the bad, but to judge the good against the bounties, the benefits that Allah gave me in this life. Allah gave me eyes. Did I only use them for good? Allah gave me ears. What did I listen to with them? Allah gave me feet. Where did I walk with them? Allah gave me internet. What did I watch with it? Allah gave me air to breathe. He gave me security. He gave me parents. Each and every single bounty in our life that you possess, whether it is the teeth in your head, the family in your house, the wealth in your bank account, the security that you possess, the intellect that you possess, the tongue that you possess, will all be put on one side of this scale. That these are all of the things I gave you. then the scale will be weighed against, what did you do with my bounties? What did you do with the blessings that I gave you? In that moment, the believer complains and he says, Ya Allah, I did khair, I did good. I did not commit more sin than goodness. Allah will reply and say, I know, but I gave you much more than you utilized. I gave you so much more. Now I want payment for the good that I gave you. Now I want to know that my justice is not just about is it good or bad, but did you do justice with what I gave you? This is one of the most scariest and frightening of conditions. You're not in the clear if I did more good deeds than bad. That's just step one. Step two is this process of determining, how did I treat the bounties of Allah? Which is why the Ahlul Bayt explain that when you find yourself in a difficulty in that moment, when your scale is light and the bounties of Allah are heavy, there is only one thing that can save the mu'min in the challenges of that difficulty. And that will be the salawat that the believer sent upon us, Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. There's a reason there's a piece of poetry. خفيف على اللسان وثقيل على الميزان صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. That this is the place of protection, this is the place of security for the believer. That if you have tied yourself to the example of Ahlul Bayt and remembered this Ahlul Bayt, continued on the sunnah of Allah and the malaika, by remembering and praying for Ahlul Bayt, that though it is something light and easy on your tongue, it will be something weighty and saving you on the scale on the Day of Judgment, is this recitation of this salawat. It's not a little matter to say that I used the bounty of Allah correctly, that all of the tools that Allah gave me were used well. It's a very difficult statement to claim and to admit and to be honest to. This is why the affair of the salawat is not a light matter. It is not something to be taken simply. It is not something to be lazy about. When you take a look and see, there's a description that says that Ibrahim was named Khalil Allah. He was named the friend of Allah. Why? Because of his proximity to Allah through the wasila of Ahlul Bayt. That he was someone who would say salawat constantly. And it was that salawat that he would say that raised his darajat and made him the friend of Allah. That this was the wasila by which to ask. The wasila of the Ahlul Bayt is not light. Which brings us to the significance of this night, and I want to spend more time on the object of justice, but to take advantage of this opportunity of tonight, I want to talk a little bit about the actual practicality of what happens in Karbala. When we look at the Battle of Karbala, it was intended to be on the night of the 10th of Muharram. That the army of Umar Sa'd moved on the camp of Imam Hussain in this night. And Abu Abdullah sent Hazrat Abbas to find out why the army of Umar Sa'd is coming to the tents. Umar Sa'd produced a letter from Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. In the letter it said, now I command you to either one, that Hussein gives bay'ah to Yazid, or two, that you complete this battle and kill this man. When Umar Sa'd approached with this letter, and he told Abul Fadl Abbas, we've received the command now, tell us what you want to do. Hazrat Abbas goes back to Imam Hussein and tells him that, oh Imam Hussein, this is the condition now, and they've insisted upon the battle to begin. Abu Abdullah says, oh Abbas, ask them for one night. Tell them, let the affair be decided tomorrow, give us this one night. Abul Fadl goes to the army of Umar Sa'd and says, my master has asked for one night and that tomorrow we can settle this affair from Fajr. He will not delay it beyond the fact that this night should be given to us. The enemies of Allah gave Imam Hussein this night. Abul Fadl al-Abbas, when he returns to the tent of Imam Hussein, he asks, brother, let me ask you, what is the difference if we were to fight now in this night or if we fight in the morning? Imam Hussain replied and he says, Brother Abbas, I am one who Allah bears witness. I love to pray to Allah in the darkness of the night, and I love to recite the Quran in the darkness of the night. That if I have one more night in this world, I want to spend this night in prayer to Allah and in the recitation of Quran in this night. Therefore, those of you, all lovers of Ahlul Bayt, those of you who claim that, Ya Allah, if you gave us the chance, we would be with Abu Abdullah in the field of Karbala. That this is a night, whether you pray before or not, this is a night to pray Salatul Layl. Why? Because Abu Abdullah asked for this night to pray. It is the night to recite Quran. Maybe you don't do it any other time. No problem. Do it tonight. That tonight is the night that Hussain ibn Ali asked to recite Quran. Ya Allah, count me amongst his companions. One of the realities of the battle of Karbala is that it astounds the intellect that how could this have happened? When we describe the physical numbers, it seems impossible that there is a ma'raka, a battle that takes place. It should be something that wipes out reality. But understand something. Imam Hussain did not voluntarily submit not to disgrace and not to death. Imam Hussain had prepared and taken this time to prepare his camp for the onslaught of the battle that would come. The Imam knows that in totality his numbers, including everyone, is not more than a few hundred. And the army that stands in front of him is in the thousands or tens of thousands. That an army of that size can simply encircle and remove in one moment the entirety of the army and force of Imam Hussain. So which is why when you look at the strategy of what Imam does, is he moves his tents. Amongst the Arab, because they were traveling people, and tents are very thin in the sense that they are made of cloth, sound travels. So if you traveled with people, you would make your tents far apart to give privacy to each other. Abu Abdullah moved the tents close together. And he made two rings. The outer tents, which would be empty, and the inner tents that would be full. Around these outer tents that he created a barrier. He did not want the enemy to be able to attack from behind. So, and similar to the technique of Khandak, they dug a trench from behind all of the tents. And this day, it was filled with firewood. The intent of the Imam was, such a large army, I need to restrict this army from being able to attack me from every direction and limit them so that there is only one direction by which that they can come, so that there can be a battle as opposed to a massacre. This description of how Imam structured his environment took place on the morning of Ashura. That they describe and say the morning of Ashura, when the army of Umar Sa'd decided to move against and attempt to wipe out the entirety of the forces of Imam Hussain in one moment, Abu Abdullah took Muslim ibn Awsaja, went behind the tents and lit the fire in the pit, in the trench, so that no horse would be willing to come and attack, and no man could cross from behind and come into the tents. The reason we know this was true is there an exchange that takes place the morning of Ashura to describe this event. That as the army was beginning to attack and Imam Hussain went behind with Muslim ibn Awsaja to light the fire, as they were lighting the fire, Mal'un Shimr came running from behind the army and tried to attempt a sneak attack to come into the camp and attack Imam Hussain in that instance. But as Shimr approached from behind, the fire in the pit was immediately lit. And Shimr's horse skidded away. It refused to cross. Shimr became frustrated. I thought I was going to catch Hussain ibn Ali. But Hussain stopped me. So there's an exchange. Shimr, being frustrated that this fire has prevented him, mal'oon, stands there and calls out, "O Hussain, you have lit a fire for yourself in this world before Allah puts you in the fire in the hereafter." Na'uzubillah. La'natullahi alayhi. Muslim ibn Awsaja teaches us of the character of Imam Hussain. He stands there with Imam Hussain and he says, "Aba Abdullah, I am an archer of note. I have the ability to hit my mark when I shoot an arrow. If you give me the permission, I will kill this man right here for the audacity he has had to speak to you this way." Abu Abdullah replies and says, "O Muslim, while this is a vile and wretched man, I do not like that I should be the one who begins the fighting in this day. Therefore I ask for you to hold back and not shoot this arrow, lest that they say that Hussein is the one who began the attack." There is a question of the intention of Imam Hussain on the day of Ashura. What was the Imam trying to achieve on this day? There are those who will describe that the army that stood in front of Imam Hussain, that he killed so many of them that the army was almost wiped out. That the intention of the Imam was to kill all of these people. That's not the intention of Imam Hussain. When you look at the events of the day of Ashura, you see that the Imam, every moment that he gets, every opportunity that he has, he takes the time to preach to the people. The goal of an Imam is never to kill humanity. The goal of the Imam is to bring hidayah to humanity, to bring guidance to humanity. The intention of Imam Hussain in the field of Karbala was the same. That, "Oh people, don't spill my blood. Understand that my status with Allah is unique. There is no one who holds a position with Allah the way I hold a position with Allah. There is no other grandson of Rahmatul lil Alameen on this earth. There is no other of the Ahl al-Kisa that remains. Spare my blood. Find guidance and step away from the tyranny of evil." Mu'mineen, tonight, if you are sitting here, understand the message of Abu Abdullah, that it is that the love of Allah is fulfilled through the process of hidayah, is found through the process of seeking guidance to Allah, is to seek that Allah's mercy reaches us, not in extremity, not in abuse. This is why this night is a night of ibadat. Because the goal of Abu Abdullah, had it been to wipe out, to annihilate, this would have been a night of war. But Abu Abdullah's love for Allah was what he wanted to transmit to humanity and society. Which is why look and see how he prepared in this night. There is a description of this night that says that Abu Abdullah went through the darkness and entered into the Maidan of Karbala. Nafi ibn Hilal, who was an archer in the army of Imam Hussain, says, "When I saw Imam Hussain leave the tents, I started to follow behind him, lest the Imam should be alone and someone should attack him in this location." Nafi says that I followed the Imam. I would see him clean places in the field of Karbala and describe, "This is where my children will be martyred. This is where my friends will be martyred." In a moment he describes and says that Abu Abdullah said to me, "Nafi, look, do you see those two mountains in the distance? There is a path between them. Nafi, I give you my permission. Go and leave this place. Go back to your family. I will stand on the day of judgment, Nafi, and tell Allah that I gave you permission and you are forgiven for anything. You have not in any way reduced in your status for this affair." Nafi would reply and say, "Yabna Rasulullah, what is life without you? What is the point of living without you? I will never separate from you." There is a description that says that after when Abu Abdullah returned to the tents and he was visiting with family to family, every mother in this night was preparing her children, her brothers, her father for the battle that would come the next day. That stand with Hussein ibn Ali, sacrifice your lives for the son of Zahra. that make sure that we are those who have given everything in the way of Allah and nothing has been left behind. They describe and say that when Abu Abdullah sat by Sayyidah Zainab, he was cleaning his sword and reciting poetry. The poetry would describe that tomorrow will be the final day of Abu Abdullah on this earth. Hearing this poetry, Sayyidah Zainab began to cry. Why? Remember that these two brothers and sisters, this brother and sister, had never been separated in their life. Sayyidah Zainab would complain and say, "Oh Hussain, I have not yet overcome the grief of Rasulullah, that our mother Zahra left us. I had not yet come over her grief that our father Ali ibn Abi Talib left us. You and I then bore witness to the shahadat of our brother Hussain and the difficulties. Brother, why now do you intend to leave me? Why do you intend to leave me alone in the field of Karbala?" Abu Abdullah calmed Sayyidah Zainab, informed her of the azamat of the sacrifice that was expected of them. And Sayyidah Zainab asked a question. She says, "Brother, these companions of yours, have you tested them? Are you sure they will be true to you tomorrow? What if they desert you in this difficulty, in this condition?" Abu Abdullah says, "Certainly I have tested them. Outside of this tent, that guardian of Imam Hussain for this night, Nafi, was standing listening. That the daughter of Zahra doubts our sincerity. She doubts that truly we are with her or not." He went to Habib and complained, "Habib, I have heard the sister of Hussain question whether we, the companions, will be loyal to the family of Ali Muhammad." Habib's ghira spoke up. He called out and said, "O lions of Allah, come to me." All of the ashab came out with their swords and their spears, imagining that the battle had begun. Habib collected them and arrayed them outside of the tent of Zainab. He prepared them and said, "Oh Sayyidah, look and see. We, the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, stand before you with our swords that we shall not put down until we have cleaved your enemies. With our spears that we shall break in the chest of all those who wish harm to your brother. Sayyidah, do not discount our sincerity. We shall be true with your family in this day that comes." There is a description that says that it was just not the men who were tested this way. That one of the companions of Abu Abdullah, who was married by the name of Ali ibn Mazahir, Abu Abdullah came to him and said, "Oh Ali, I understand you have decided to sacrifice for me on the day of Karbala. But understand that after your shahada, your women will be taken as prisoners and paraded from town to town. Oh Ali, you are from the Banu Asad. Why don't you take your wife? And near here are her relatives. Go take her to her relatives. Do not put your wife through the situation of disgrace and difficulty." Ali ibn Mazahir went to his wife and said, "Abu Abdullah has instructed me that tomorrow you will be taken a prisoner after I am shaheed. With this I am satisfied to give my sacrifice for Abu Abdullah. The son of Zahra, I will spill my blood. But for you to be taken prisoner is a matter of shame and difficulty. Come, I will take you to your relatives in the Banu Asad that are nearby and save yourself from this location. Why should you suffer as well?" They describe that this pious woman began to cry and beat her face and said, "Oh husband of mine, how can you be satisfied that Zainab should be made a prisoner and that I should be set free? If the daughters of Zahra will go through the disgrace and difficulty of this imprisonment, if they shall be paraded, that as you will not leave Hussain, I will not leave Zainab. We too will stand and stay our commitment with the children of Zahra." Ali ibn Mazahir came back and reported back to Abu Abdullah that the women will not leave. Abu Abdullah made one more effort. "Tonight you sit in the darkness." Imagine that this is the same darkness inside of the tents when Abu Abdullah gathered his companions and said to them, "Oh my dear friends, this army that is outside is thirsty for my blood. You have no crime against them. Why don't you take your families and leave this place? As you go, take one of my family members with you, and all of you escape from this place. I will give the excuse for you in Mahshar. I will present before Allah on the day of judgment that I am the one who set you free. There is no liability on you. Abu Abdullah would go so far to say is that if you are embarrassed to leave me in this condition, then I will turn out the light, that you may leave quietly, that no one will see you leave in this place, that your dignity is valuable to me. Oh mu'mineen, would that we be with Abu Abdullah. Would that we were those that were chosen to be with my Imam. Would that your sitting here could be excused from you. Which of us would leave the son of Zahra? Which of us would say that our life is more valuable than the children of Zahra? Which of us would dare to leave that place? In the same way, those companions, those that were old, tied their waists and stood up straight. Those that were young stood on their toes and prepared to look like men. Such that when Abu Abdullah turned on the light, there was no one who had left him. Each and every single one had made the commitment to stand by Imam Hussain. Each one had made the commitment that we will stay with Abu Abdullah in every moment. But all the day of Ashura, there will come a time when Hussain is alone in the battlefield. When he will go to mount his horse and he will look and say, "Oh my companions, I mounted each of you on your horse. Why is no one here to mount me on my horse? O children of Banu Hashim, I watched each of you battle on the day of Ashura. Now when Hussain ibn Ali goes to battle, there is no one to watch him." That condition of Imam Hussain, this is the last night of Abu Abdullah in this world. This is the last night that those who love Hussain are alive. Oh mu'mineen, call out, "Wa Hussaina! Wa Hussaina!" Would that we were with you, Abu Abdullah. Our life be sacrificed for one moment for you. For one moment of that life, that it were to continue. This is the night of dua. This is the night of salat. This is the night of remembrance of Allah. Be conscious that if this is the night to stay awake, that do not neglect the mention of Abu Abdullah. Do not neglect the mention of Ahl Allah. And make sure that your actions are reflective of what that intention is. That as you sit in this darkness now, that if we were to sit with Abu Abdullah, how would we spend this night? Make sure that this night does not leave you, except that you have confirmed that if I was there, that Habib would write my name amongst the supporters of Hussain. Do not let this night go lightly. Do not let this night go shortly. This was a night where Abu Abdullah wanted every minute of this night for the worship of Allah. Make sure that your actions are reflected of the companions of Abu Abdullah. Matim Hussain.
طف الحسين